Mr. Gallegos, I believe. Now, this is a very special day, isn't it? Now, let's see. What is this special day, eh? Ah, now I remember. It has just this moment come back to me. Today, you're gonna get hanged. Today, young Mr. Gallegos, killer of children, dances on the gallows.
Hello, and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the internet's third most popular Twilight Zone podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host, Fred.
Hello.
How you doing this week, Fred?
I'm good. It's Oscar night.
Everyone's so excited to hear our predictions. Let's get them out there. It'll be so timely when this comes out in a week.
Just 5 days late. So you out there on the red carpet?
Yeah. We'll be talking to all the starlets. We'll be talking to Ted DeCorsia. Yeah. We'll be talking, we'll have Robbie in there critiquing all the outfits.
Yeah. John Anderson on color commentary.
Right. What a night.
That.
All the stars are shining their brightest.
Who are you wearing?
So did you get a chance to see, well, we definitely saw The Martian. We've Martianed the shit out of this show this last couple months.
Yeah.
Did you see any of the other noms?
I'm not as big of a movie guy as you. What are they again?
It'll be easy. I'll just run them through in my order because I just did my annual Facebook post. So.
Oh, your annual one Facebook post.
Everyone gets excited for that one Facebook post. So there's Brooklyn, which I would assume you'd have to see.
Didn't see.
The Big Short.
Didn't see.
Spotlight.
Did not see.
The Martian.
Saw it.
Room.
Missed it.
Bridge of Spies.
Next week.
The Revenant.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Well, that's also my official ordering, so people know how I feel. People know how Fred feels.
Yeah, of the two I've seen, I guess The Martian is a little bit better because it's not like 3 hours of sustained grunting. I don't know. I mean, I like movies a lot, but I like the pomp and pageantry, but
sure.
I don't really like get in on the Oscar pools.
Part of this whole move is we have access to babysitters, so I've gone to the theaters more this year than I have in many years, so that part's exciting.
I'm surprised that the second half of Zoolander 2 didn't make your Oscar list.
It was a tight year, Fred.
And now for Best Adapted Screenplay, the second half of Zoolander 2.
Cool.
Anyway, let's get going. What episode are we talking about this week?
This week we will be discussing Dust, a second season episode. It was the 48th of the production run. It aired originally on January 6th, 1961.
There was a village built of crumbling clay and rotting wood, and it squatted ugly under a broiling sun like a sick and mangy animal wanting to die. This village had a virus shared by its people. It was the germ of squalor, of hopelessness, of a loss of faith. For the faithless, the hopeless, the misery-laden, there is time, ample time, to engage in one of the other pursuits of men. They begin to destroy themselves.
In the Twilight Zone.
He's tired of characters. He's just really coming after his settings this week.
Yeah. Sherling didn't really make it far as a Lonely Planet travel guide writer. This town is diseased. Anyway, we like to write our own Serling-style intros. I feel like I've been making you go first, so I'll step up to the plate.
All right.
Here we go. Be you man or female man, at some point in your male life, you have wished for a little hit of M, the good stuff, magic. It is during just such a jonesing for jinx that we join our protagonist, a Mr. Gallegos, who is desperately trying to prevent his son from being lynched by angry members of the Auscadwa, or Old West stock characters against drunk wagoning. Mr. Gallegos will soon find that those who go searching for sorcery, hiking for hocus pocus, spelunking for the supernatural, or walkathoning for wizardry often find it in the strangest of places, like the human heart, or in the beautiful miracle of shoddy rope manufacturing, especially when the rope is made in the quasi-legal sweatshops of the Twilight Zone.
Nice. You're just like Serling, kind of teasing us with that Twilight Zone at the end.
Yeah, keep you on the line. Mm-hmm, what you got? Mm-hmm.
It was a squalid, rotten little town halfway between Nowheresville and East Bumf. And in the town there was a jail. A rotten, dirty, stupid jail with ugly, fart-smelling bricks and streaky glass window panes that revealed only the disgusting interior in which there was a fetid office, an asinine bathroom, and a rancid mini-kitchen. And one more thing. A jail cell. Inside the cell is a man, but back to the dumpy, frumpy turd heap these townfolks call a cell. These blocations can all be found right across the county line from the much cleaner, more wholesome region known as the Twilight Zone.
I like blocation.
Sometimes, yeah, you just got to get out of there.
No, that was good. I'm trying to think of what other context anyone on Earth has ever said blocation.
It sounds like you're making fun of a vacation, but it's not quite right. But yeah.
Or like you're kind of like making fun of a real estate agent or something like that. Location, more like blocation. Sorry. Anyway, this is a second season episode of the Twilight Zone, so if you want to avoid spoilers, check it out before we get going on Netflix, Hulu, various other places on the internet, and of course the DVDs and Blu-rays, which are available for sale. But we are about to ruin the plot as we get going now, so you have been warned. We open up on this Old West town that Serling just really seems to hate even more than his main characters. But I will say the Serling intro is pretty badass.
I think this is maybe one of the best Serling intros we've seen. It is awesome.
I'll try and describe it. So, he's talking over the scenes of this rotten, horrible town. Mm-hmm. Then we cut to a different part of it, and some guys are setting up like a noose, and we're sort of at the top part of the noose, and they drop some sandbags down to test it. And as the camera pans down, we see Serling like right there, like just kind of like finishing up his intro. Like it kind of made me wish he would like light a match and like toss it over his shoulder, and the thing blows up. He just walks away without looking.
It definitely was one of the coolest ones he's done.
Yeah, it was.
Kudos for a extraordinarily low energy episode we're gonna get. That was like one of the most exciting intros we've seen. It was like, whoa, this is gonna be great.
Let's. Anyway, when we get back to the horrible crap town, a sort of jolly Falstaffian salesman is arriving in town. You like that one?
That's very good. It's very timely with the Orson Welles movie coming out right now.
There's an Orson Welles movie
tied in. I forget the title of it. They are re-releasing this Orson Welles movie that had been long unavailable, where he plays Falstaff. It kind of combines a number of Shakespeare plays into one. Chimes at midnight.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a roundabout way of saying he's fat, but I mean,
right.
It's a very highfalutin way of saying he's a big fatty.
Well, it'll give us an excuse to put that Orson Welles wine thing up on the Tumblr finally, like we promised a year ago.
Anyway, yes, it's this guy, Falstaff. I don't know what's his name again. Sykes.
Yeah,
it's a Mr. Sykes. He's a traveling salesman. He's got a few burros full of sundries. And he comes across the jail and meets our sort of other protagonist, Mr. Gallegos, who is waiting to be hanged.
Did you notice in kind of the long shot as he's walking up, I think there's a horse waiting for atmosphere that looked pretty sickly. Did you notice a horse that was not looking so hot?
No, I didn't. Maybe they like scrimped on the horse budget or something.
I don't know. It wasn't saddled, and it just seemed to have a real, like, an anti-camel, like a reverse dip. And I just thought, like, I think I've seen horses without saddles, and there's not just a natural, like, contour there.
A rental agency that specializes in horses with scurvy.
I don't know
where they got it from.
It sells the, dumpiness of the town. They can't even have a nice horse to put out.
We can't have nice horses.
Exactly.
So Sykes goes into the jail to deliver a pitch for the jailman and also give us some backstory. He's sort of, he's like Falstaffian, as pretentious as it is a good way to put it. He's very kind of like jovial, but a little bit cruel, and he's kind of like big and boisterous and joking. And so apparently Gallegos, the man who's in jail waiting to be hanged, ran over a little girl with his wagon and is going to pay the price. And as you could probably tell from the name, Gallegos is Mexican, I guess. They don't really say it, but he's definitely kind of like referred to as like an other.
I got nervous there because you were like, as you can obviously tell by his name, and I thought you like knew what Gallegos translated to. It was like, oh gosh,
no.
They were gonna be like, obviously he's the Jesus figure because Gallegos means Jesus in Spanish.
No, I think Jesus means Jesus.
Okay. I don't know how this translates.
It's not that complicated. But anyway, yeah. So it's obviously very tragic. magic, and now he's going to pay the price. And Sykes is kind of delighted about it all. The sheriff, the other guy in the scene, is not too thrilled about a man losing his life. And Sykes and the sheriff get into a friendly little debate over the sheriff's like soft on crime stance.
Yeah, this whole scene is like a classic TZ mix of sweat and insults.
Yeah.
You know,
There's sort of like a political take on this. Like Sykes represents kind of like a certain like, I don't know, we never make political jokes on the podcast. I feel like I shouldn't even wade into those waters. Why do we not do that? Is it like the third rail of...
It's the third rail of Twilight Zone podcasting. Exactly.
I know.
That's why Sharon went down.
It's not exactly people are like, oh man, they're not going to be around this November for the election, like the Daily Show or whatever. Anyway, the scene kind of grows and grows, and you get this little, dynamic. Gallegos is mournful, but obviously doesn't want to be hanged for his crime. Sykes is very gleeful about the impending execution, and the sheriff is kind of filled with sadness about the tragedy of the girl dying, and also the fact that they have to now hang this dude. And the scene ends with Sykes leaving the jail, and it's time for the funeral procession for the little girl, and he asks Sheriff Koch whether he'll weep for the little girl or Gallegos. And the scene ends with the sheriff's classic catchphrase, "I have tears enough for both." For some reason, we didn't grab the
like how every episode of Kojak went,
I don't know, something about it just like, that's
like
his
a Dirty
campaign
Harry
slogan.
Right.
Every year he runs on, "I have tears enough for everybody."
Fred, he's low energy. That was my best trump. I didn't even make any kind of accent. I have nothing.
Yeah. Well, just
He's a loser.
Be glad no one. Yeah. Anyway, hot or not on Sheriff Koch, Gene Hackman. I got some angles for
the
you.
video.
I'll send you some angles.
Send me your headshots. Okay. I'll see if I can talk to my people.
I think you're going to agree with me when you see my angles.
I think I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Anyway, so that scene ends, and then we get the funeral procession for the little girl. And Sykes runs up to the grieving parents of the girl and offers some bloodthirsty words of consolation. It's not exactly the most reassuring thing to say to someone whose daughter just died. What is he? He just is kind of like, "Don't worry, we're going to swing him by a rope."
Not everyone knows how to deal with grief. Yeah. Everyone deals with it in their own way.
Yeah, yeah. But it turns out that Gallegos' father and sister have come to the funeral procession. I was very confused because the dad is like 70.
The relationship was a little hazy.
Yeah, the dad is 75 and the girl's like 4. So
my father wishes me to tell you that. My father wishes for me to tell you that his heart is broken. That if he could give
his own life in return. His own life in return, Estrelita.
His own life in return. He would do so with great willingness. He understands.
Get out of the way, little girl.
Did you have the reaction that's not really how translating normally works, right?
yeah.
Normally, the old, first generation immigrant relying on the young child doesn't speak English better than the child.
Yeah, I don't know. They kind of bungled that, I think.
And the fact that they later bring in the old man and it's clear he can carry on a conversation just fine.
Yeah,
and like
maybe it's just that he's like overcome with grief, although then he's not.
I don't know. I mean, like, his own life in return is not a simple construction.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. They just didn't think that through, basically.
The fact that he's like correcting her grammar halfway through, it's like, what?
No,
what's she
the
doing
nominative gerund. No, it's more, I would have liked to have been able to.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, what did you think of the acting job of the father / great great grandfather? He's very intense. I don't know if it was good or just intense.
I will say there's a part coming up where I kind of am on board with him, but he's an interesting.
Yeah, he's kind of like
yeah, it's kind of not working for me, but there's a point where I think he brings it around the bend later in the episode.
All right. Well, anyway, they're begging the forgiveness of the parents, but the parents of the little girl don't have much patience for it. Old man Gallegos arrives to beg for the pardon of his son at the jail this time.
You never been drunk, Mr. Sheriff? You never felt such misery rising in you that salvation seemed to look at you from only out of a bottle? You never felt pain, such pain that you had to ride through the night, not look behind you? My son was hungry, and he felt such pain, and he drank too much. He rode down the street, not looking, not seeing. And he had a sadness deep inside. Sadness that there was not enough to eat. Sadness that they had no work. Sadness that the earth all around him was growing barren in the sun.
See, this is why you're not supposed to represent yourself at a trial.
Yeah, this is like his Wani Cochran routine, you know? It goes on for quite a while. That's not even the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's given his best pitch to get his kid out, but
Yeah.
it's not really working.
I don't really buy it either. I mean, I'm not saying, like, he deserves to be, you know...
Come on, Fred. Who among us hasn't gotten drunk?
Yeah, well-
Because we're unhappy. And so we killed a kid. Have you never been unhappy or hungry, Fred?
Who among us has never killed a child?
When you're driving to Whataburger at 3 a.m, I mean, come on.
I mean...
Who's to blame, honestly?
I mean, I'm not saying I think Gallegos should swing. I'm just saying that it's like... There are degrees here, you know? It's not like we have to hang him or we have to let him go, you know? He could just go to jail.
Yeah, there's really like a zero-sum game to this episode, isn't
Maybe
there?
they just didn't have like a concept of like degrees of justice in the Old West. It's just kind of like parking violation, he's got to hang, you know? I do think it is like interestingly ethically complicated because it's like you're clearly supposed to like side with Gallegos a little bit and on the side of mercy. Because everybody who's against him seems kind of bloodthirsty and evil. But, like, he did, like, drunk wagon. You know what I mean? I mean, he was wagoning with a blood alcohol level, you know, well above the limit. And that is reckless. And,
Fred, that evidence, we're going to get that out. There was all kinds of stuff going on. Shady stuff with the cop, you know. Right. We've looked into the cop's background here.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I think the episode, like, wants us to
We get
feel...
it. You're tough on crime.
Well, okay,
you know, you're up for a new podcast in the next couple months. You're trying to position yourself. We get it, Fred.
John, I have tears enough for both. But
I'm the sentimental schmaltzy guy, and
do you know what I mean, though? I mean, like, in all seriousness.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's interesting.
The idea that there isn't, like, a life without parole option here is kind of... It hurts the narrative thrust, but it might make everyone a little happier.
Yeah, cool. And amidst this sort of, like, plea for clemency, he makes some reference to this magic coin. He wants to give it to his son in jail to sort of, like, you know, get a wish to get his son out of jail. Sykes, overhearing this, senses a bit of an opportunity. And after the scene kind of breaks down and everybody goes off to do their Old West business, Sykes pulls aside the little girl and kind of offers her a pitch for the young girls.
You tell your papa I want to help him. You tell him that his coin is no good, is worthless, but that I have a magic dust that turns hate to love. But it is very, very precious, very expensive. Comprende? Understand? Now, you tell your papa to bring 100 pesos to my room in 1 hour, and I will sell him the magic dust that makes people love and forgive.
Made from the finest exotic birds from Hong Kong.
Yeah. No, I don't know. So did you notice in that clip there that there was a dollar amount tossed around? Or not a dollar amount, but
inflation.
Calculation.
peso edition.
Now, Fred, I hope you did some homework because you know you can't just hit 8. I mean, there's different inflation rates for different currency. Right?
Well, you know, You would think that, but I
would
did a
hope
lot
that.
of research. I sadly did. Wasn't a very busy week
Okay.
at work. And according to Wikipedia, prior to 1873, the Mexican dollar would have been, to all intents and purposes, equal in value to silver dollar coins in the United
Okay.
States. Apparently, actually, that the Mexican and also the Spanish peso were much more widely used in international currency before, like, 1875. So actually, it's essentially like a dollar. And so if you do that calculation, 100 pesos in 1860, which was admittedly somewhat arbitrary, but my best guess as to the time of this episode, is worth $2,662.88 today.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. Anyway, I don't know. So it's kind of interesting. That struck me as like a pretty reasonable amount of money. Like, you remember in like
Yeah.
what was it, Mr. Garrity and the Graves, and it was just like
Yeah, every single person in the town, including like the destitute town drunk, had $500 sitting around.
yeah. This is a little bit more like it's a lot of money, but it seems like okay,
Right.
maybe somebody could he
Yeah.
could make it
okay.
happen.
Yeah, if he got everyone in his, neighborhood to pool together $1,000 to save someone's life, yeah, that's plausible. Like, he could get an Indiegogo together
Yes.
pretty quick on that.
You set up a real quick GoFundMe.
Right.
But anyway, after the little girl leaves, Sykes empties a random tobacco pouch and fills it with dust off the ground. So obviously, surprise, surprise, he doesn't really have magic dust. He's remarkably cavalier about this. The girl's like not even really out of earshot, and then he just just like
He's kind of like a weird anti-Santa Claus. Like,
kind of
do we know, is there some like Mexican tradition of like a mean Santa Claus?
El Krampus or something.
Yeah.
I did notice how Sykes has kind of like a northeastern accent throughout. I don't know, maybe that's part of the legend of El Diablo Santa Claus, but he definitely does not sound very Old Westy. So in the next scene, the sheriff and Gallegos are shooting the existentialist, and a local farmer arrives with his kids to see the hanging. It's
Yeah.
got kind of like a dad taking his kids to the monster truck rally feel. I'll kind of pull up, pile out.
Fred, as a stay-at-home dad, a lot of time you just got to get your kids out there. If it's it's a warm day, you haven't been out of the house in a while. It's just like, this will be fun. There's some kind of education to this,
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. The farmer dude kind of reminded me of Cletus the slack-jawed yokel, just because his kids keep coming out. Lyle, Merle.
Well, I did think
Yeah.
the child actor was one to note.
Oh.
Here, we'll just get a taste of his line.
Is that the man they're gonna put the rope on?
A great read from a great actor who was in no way chosen because he was related to anyone who made the episode. Stay tuned,
Yeah,
folks.
exactly.
We're going to break open a big story.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our take on dust. Anyway, yes, that child actor sort of rounds out the scene. And then we cut from the real set to the indoor-outdoor set. The townsfolk are gathered on their hanging set that they've built on the studio lot. It's just very disconcerting to go to a real outdoor set to a fake outdoor set. Even the sound just sounds different, you know what I mean?
Fred, I
Pet
don't
peeve.
even know what you're talking about. You're starting to sound like one of those Stanley Kubrick moon landing people. This was all clearly outdoors. Just quit being a cynic.
Sorry. Gallegos is being read his rights up on the hanging machine.
The gallows.
Gallows, whatever.
It's not the most sophisticated machine.
I forgot what it was called.
It's a platform.
Look, I know Falstaffian, but I forgot the word gallows. Anyway, Gallegos is being read his rights. There's some light heckling from the crowd. And meanwhile, Gallegos' father is meeting Sykes in the jail to buy the magic dust. And it turns out that Gallegos' old man took up a collection from his friends to get the cash together. So the GoFundMe campaign was able to reach its goal.
Again, another very It's a Wonderful Life parallel
It
here.
makes me wonder what he told his friends when he asked for the money.
I don't know.
You gotta
Maybe-
feel like one of them would have been like, wait, magic dust?
I want to believe he doesn't lead with magic dust, but like everything about this character makes him, he's so sincere. I don't
Yeah.
think he would lie about it, so I don't know.
Is there something borderline racist about that?
Yeah, if you think like, okay, there's the one character who buys into the magic, that's fine. But then you think like he goes to his village and everyone's on board with the magic. I don't know. I mean, I think we just don't have to get too deep. Maybe let's just assume he runs in as like, I got a way to save my kid. I need, whatever you got.
Yeah. All right.
Leave it at that.
Sykes makes the sale, and Gallegos goes dashing out of the real outdoors and into the fake outdoors of the hanging set.
Right.
And Gallegos arrives on the site of the hanging, which has taken quite a long time to get going. And he arrives with his...
Well, there's like an opening act.
Exactly. There's the undercard. Right. Instead of hanging, they just like punch someone. Well, probably did have public whipping, so that's really not quite as funny.
Got a little real.
Twitchy. Anyway, Gallegos arrives with his dust, and he runs out in front of the gallows and starts like kind of tossing it up into the air.
Mm-hmm.
And
I actually have this. Okay. This is the kind of extended bit.
Wait! You must pay heed to the magic now. You must stop all of this and pay heed to the magic. Magic! You must pay heed to the magic. All of you. Compassion. Magic is so that my son can live. It's you yourself. You're once used to live. Magic.
Sheriff, spring out.
You must pay heed to the magic. It's only for love. The magic is for love. The magic is for love. Magic. You must pay heed to the magic. Magic. It is for love. It is for love. The magic is for love. No!
Okay, that's the part where it's like, he's goofy and he's over the top, but like somewhere in that, actually watching it, not just getting the audio, at some point with everyone kind of just laughing at him and he gets more and more pathetic. Yeah. At some point I kind of get on his side of like, oh, he's just like so desperate to save his son. I'm kind of on board, right? And when he, hears the gallows, the block drop, and he thinks his kid just died, there's a genuine stab of pain. I'll give it to the actor for that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's like, I tend to kind of like enjoy it when actors really give their all, even if it's a little questionable. And he really just like totally commits, and it's affecting, even though it's a little over the top. And at this point, a slow clap breaks out, and obviously, it's the dust is just dust. And
is that so obvious, Fred? Is it?
What?
Is
this a song lyric, or?
I don't know. I mean, the dust. Well, what happens? Tell me what happened. He heard the block drop.
What happens is that as everybody's kind of yucking it up over the old man and his magic dust, the hangman kicks the lever or whatever happens. Mm-hmm. The trapdoor springs. Gallegos goes falling through, but the rope breaks, and everybody looks.
He lands in a river. Yes. You hear this. I'm living it. It's very artistic.
Yeah, exactly. No, and Gallegos obviously survives, and everybody just looks kind of like embarrassed, You know how it is.
Sure.
And after this, misfire hanging, the Canfields, the parents of the deceased girl, are asked if they want to try for a double.
There's a real Price is Right vibe to this moment.
Do you want to take what's in the box?
Right. There's somehow this is how the law works, where if the rope breaks, then you get to choose. Yeah. Do you want to double kill him or let him go?
Next up, we'll give you a bow and arrow. But if you miss, right. Amid the sadness of the old man and his son and the whole magic dust thing, the Canfields kind of let it go, and they decide to take the broken rope as a sign for providence.
Yeah.
And
before we get too far away from this, hot or not for the priest who's overseeing this whole ceremony?
Okay.
Did you happen to see him?
I did not.
I'll have to get a clip.
Right.
Christopher Walken. It's not even close. It's like it's Walken.
Okay, it is Christopher Walken.
I feel very confident about these. Some of them, it's like, if this person and this person kind of mad or blah, blah, blah. Like, this is good.
This is on the level of Kristen Wiig in Monsters on Maple Street.
I felt better about this than that.
Oh, wow, okay. Which one of us is going to brave a Walken impression?
Wow, what a question.
What a question.
Jeez, I don't know, Fred.
That's pretty good. No, I like it. That's not bad. Well, that's another one for your arsenal there.
I just sent you the Walken thing.
Okay.
Look at this.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, no, I see it. Yeah, that's Christopher Walken. Yeah, or his dad.
It's kind of frightening.
Yeah, I see it. Well, you got Sheriff Gene Hackman. What do you think? Right in the show.
Yeah.
All right. 2 for 2.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. That would not be my chosen angle. You know,
that's not my angle. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel much better about the Walken.
Oh yeah, the Walken is very strong. Walken's very strong. Great radio. Two guys looking at a picture that the audience can't see.
That we'll probably forget to even put up on the internet.
Anyway, let's move along. The broken rope is a sign from Providence. The hanging is called off. And I kind of like how all the kids look bummed. Like kind of in the corner of the shot. You can see they're a little disappointed. And apparently, you know, with the hanging called off, that means Gallegos is free to go.
And that's how it works.
Yep, it's time to go home.
So Gallegos has just been, spared from certain doom. He's got his life back. It's amazing. What a miracle. And then the sheriff's got a little words of wisdom to let him go.
I'm free.
Are any of us free, Luis?
Really bringing it down, Sheriff.
Yeah, that's not really the message of the episode.
I think the sheriff's just dealing with his own stuff,
I feel like there's like a 30-page backstory that this Serling wrote for the sheriff that got cut from the episode. The Existential Sheriff.
Yeah, it was his least successful spinoff.
Albert Camus' The Sheriff. So it's time to go home from the hanging. And at this point, Sykes, the Falstaffian salesman, wanders up to the abandoned broken noose and examines the torn rope, which, ironically, I kind of missed this, but he was the one who sold them the rope. So this is, maybe the irony of the episode. And he kind of is like, well, I'll be darned. And a few poor children kind of wander up, and he tosses some coins down to them. And I was kind of curious, was that supposed to be like the entirety of the 100 pesos, or was that just supposed to be a couple coins?
I think it was supposed to be all of it.
Really? Okay.
I think, yeah.
I get the feeling that he skimmed a little off the top. It only looked like a few coins, but I don't know. Maybe they were like 30 peso coins. Sykes gets a little kind of like a little sitcom chuckle to himself before he goes off to go con some other poor immigrant. And that's the end of the episode. Serling takes us out.
It was a very small, misery-laden village on the day of a hanging, and of little historical consequence. And if there's any moral to it at all, let's say that in any quest for magic, in any search for sorcery, witchery, legerdemain, first check the human heart. For inside this deep place is a wizardry that costs far more than a few pieces of gold. Tonight's case in point in the Twilight Zone.
Cool. Yeah, so that's the episode. I guess to me the most interesting thing about it is that they really do let Gallegos off the hook at the end, even though he did run over a little girl with the wagon. And I'm not saying that he deserved to hang, but like, it seems to basically be like, let the poor man go. He suffered enough. And
Doesn't he? Yeah, come on, Fred. Why you keep dumping on this guy?
I mean, I don't know.
He killed someone. What more do you want? It's been a tough time.
I mean, he spent an afternoon in jail, and I mean, I'm sure he's, I'm sure he'll feel guilty about it, but you know what I mean? Am I just being too harsh here?
That wasn't really my reaction to it.
Yeah.
I felt like it was just knowing how much this whole conception we have of Old West justice, the idea that they're going to hang someone for killing a girl seemed reasonable, and the idea that, the parents let him off for mercy, it's like, okay, it's like we said, just the fact that like the parents weren't able to be like, wait, could he spend a couple years in jail or... Because there's, I mean, we kind of fall into the recidivism category of, theories of criminal punishment.
Yeah.
We're not purely retributionists, but
have you read Mertens on this issue? Yeah, I don't know. Another thing that's kind of interesting is the fact that Gallegos is a Mexican, and it's not really touched on all that much, but you kind of get the feeling that Sykes is taking a little bit of perverse pleasure in the fact that he's being, hanged because he's like, just some lousy immigrant. You know what I mean? Although they really didn't talk about it that much. Maybe I'm just reading that into it.
I don't know. It's odd because the person playing Sykes is a, I believe Mexican-American actor who has played both. Yeah. But he doesn't really, they gave him the last name Sykes. He's presumably not supposed to be Spanish.
Right.
And the town seems to be kind of a mix, but I don't know. The parents are, maybe I'm just being kind of naive or something for not really thinking of the race issue that much in this one. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
it is,
I guess
it's,
to jump ahead into trivia, there were like a lot of earlier versions of this, and some of them were more focused on the fact that the family was Mexican. So maybe that was just kind of like a vestigial element that kind of like got cut out of the explicit dialogue of the episode, but was there in Serling's mind, or maybe not. I don't know. It is interesting.
well, I mean, maybe it is. The parents are both white people, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And the sheriff is, so yeah, I guess it's there. I don't know. It seems silly that I don't think of it more, but then it kind of, I don't know. Somehow that like makes it a little weirder that like the white people giving him I don't know, twitchy.
I mean, it's tricky. Like, just the sheer fact that like television at this time was like white as a snowstorm, and so like whenever there's like a non-white person in it, you're just like, oh, like what are they saying about, you know what I mean? And I think that like that in and of itself like speaks to like how white TV was at the time. To read some trivia here, this is from Martin Grimm Jr.'s book. On June 19th, 1958, CBS presented an episode of Playhouse 90 titled A Town Is Turned to Dust, scripted by Serling. This version told the story of the lynching of a 19-year-old Mexican boy by a mob, spurred on by a young merchant whose hatred of the victim stemmed both from his wife accepting the affection of the doomed boy and from a deep-rooted prejudice against Mexicans. It's also the story of a town sheriff who gives in feebly to the lynching mob. And then, obviously it has a town is turned to dust is like I think he almost says that line directly in his intro, so it's not so much of a reach to think that was kind of the inspiration for this. So I don't know. It's not the same story, but like you know what I mean? I kind of can't help but feel like that was supposed to be part of it, even though it's not written in a lot.
I don't think of this episode as that interesting for racial politics. I think of it as just kind of fitting in with another one of these like magical peddlers, except for this one is a little twist of like, oh, here the peddler's a con artist, but it's a kind of magic dust in a way. Like, I mean, when you say, oh, the dust isn't anything, and I'm like, well, isn't it? The point is, it's powerless, but the little performance art he does, because of the dust, inspires the parents to some degree, I think, to have mercy on him. And then you can read it even further that, the hardened, cynical Sykes gives the money back to the kids because he's like, wow, I just saw something like a miracle or something. So
fly, Dumbo, fly. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I think it is kind of tricky because like you could argue that there's nothing really Twilight Zone-y about this episode. Like everything that happens could have happened without the intervention of magic.
Sure. And by the same token, just on the racial thing, I think if there wasn't a racial distinction between them, if all the main characters were Hispanic actors, or if they were all white actors, I don't think the thrust of the story changes at all to me. Like, I don't think I respond to it differently. I mean, that might just be me missing.
No, I mean, I think...
I see how you could. Yeah. It didn't register to me while watching it.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, like, I think it could be argued that, like, the concept of this grandfather or father character, like, falling for this superstitious magic dust thing has an element of, like, oh, they'll believe any like weird magic thing. But I think since it's the Old West, probably that belief could have been ascribed to any character of any race. So
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, I think my biggest problem with it is it's just got such a weird, cruddy, low energy vibe to it. I mean, it really
it's the
does.
Ben Carson of Twilight Zone episode.
I don't know. It really
kind of sleepy.
It's extraordinarily sleepy. And again, getting into the only trivia I really have in the Twilight Zone Companion by Mark Scott Zickery.
Do you want to play the clip or?
We normally like to go out on a high note, but here, let's just move over to bios and trivia.
What we doing next?
Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Yeah. Mark Scott, Zickery, Mark Grams Jr., Zickery and Grams, and IMDb.
Yeah. We really do like to have like a joke to go into that clip, but we couldn't quite manage this time. Maybe you should just like grab the.
Well, we're just like literally in the middle of a conversation. You're like, hit the clip.
Well, you were jumping ahead to trivia.
Okay, so in Zickery's book,
This podcast is falling apart.
He talks to the director Douglas Hayes, and Hayes' conception of the episode was. This was about a town that had sunk into the dust, in effect. It had no energy. The people there were listless. They were going to allow this man to be hanged simply because it was easier than not doing that. And so, keeping this vision of it, he basically had everyone perform with extreme lethargy except for Sykes, the dad, and the guy who was going to be hanged. And he talks a little bit about how the sheriff came in with like one way of playing the sheriff that was completely different. And the director was like, no, we're going we're going existential with this one. And so I don't know, I do think it like permeates in a very weird way. Like in my mind, only the dad really registers when he goes nuts, but a lot of it just feels like very bland and sandy and blah.
No, Douglas Hayes put some Ambien in the craft services
right.
water cooler, and I don't know. I hear you. It does have a little bit of a drag to get through it type of feeling. I don't have too much actually extra trivia that we didn't already talk about, but there's a lot of, Serling wrote a number of radio plays and scripts for Playhouse 90 that were sort of similar, in that this idea of like an old West town that's just kind of like fallen to pieces. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Grams goes into a lot of detail about it, but nothing really like a cool nugget.
Thomas Gomez played Sykes. He played Cadwallader in Escape Clause. Vladimir Sokolov played Gallegos. He was also in The Mirror and The Gift. John Larch played the sheriff. He was also in It's a Good Life and Perchance to Dream.
Yeah.
John Alonzo played Luis Gallegos, the kid who's actually going to hang.
Oh, I thought he was the father.
Did I get those backwards?
I don't know.
I might have. One way or another, John Alonzo was the guy who was going to be hanged. He is actually pretty fascinating. He was he started as an actor, did some bit parts, but he made a big name as a very in-demand, respected director of photography. He worked on a ton of movies, just a couple off like a very, very long list. Harold and Maude, Chinatown, Bad News Bears, Norma Ray, Scarface, Steel Magnolias, Clifford, and Navy SEALs. So the whole range.
That's crazy.
And he directed a TV movie called Portrait of a Stripper. So, I mean, just everything.
Highs and lows.
Dwayne Gray played Rogers. He was in The Chaser. Andrea Darby played the little girl, I think, Estrellita Gallegos. Yeah. She was in Night of the Meek. John Lormer played Man. He was in Jezebel, Myrtle Bank, and Execution.
Nice.
And then this is a biggie. Yeah. A kid by the name of Doug Hayes Jr. played Farmer Boy. Now, you might not realize this, and I double-checked this. I triple-checked the spelling.
Yeah, exactly. We've been burned before.
Yes. Doug Hayes Jr. just happens to be related to the director of this episode, Douglas Hayes.
Funny about that.
Let me just play you a clip here to confirm that.
Is that the man they're gonna put the rope on?
That was the 30th take.
Doug Hayes Jr. didn't just come and go. He wasn't a flash in the pan like some some people we know on this podcast. He actually worked as a creative consultant on silk stockings for a while, so he had a long career.
Can I just throw this out there? I actually I went down a bit of a Doug Hayes Jr. rabbit hole, as you do, and
Sure.
I looked at his IMDb page. Just a few of his writing credits. Just something about this like conglomeration of credits is amazing to me. 1 episode of Chips, 1 episode of MacGyver, 10 episodes of Silk Stockings, a few episodes of Farscape, 1 episode of something called 18 Wheels of Justice, 1 episode of Walker, Texas Ranger, and 9 episodes of Pacific Blue. And he,
You know, Fred, in a different era, you call that a Renaissance man.
I love how he went out on Pacific Blue. Have you ever seen that show?
I don't even remember. I remember the title.
Oh,
I don't even know.
God.
Was that like a low rent Baywatch
Yes,
or
it
something?
was like Baywatch, but like instead of lifeguards, it was bike cops.
Oh yeah, I'm looking it up with Mario Lopez.
Yeah, he was in the later
Okay.
seasons. He wasn't in the original cast, John. It's honestly watch. We'll put this on the Tumblr, but just watch like the first 10 minutes of the opening of Pacific Blue, because it's so 90s, and like at some point, like it's these 2 cops are on bikes and they see these like street punks doing graffiti, and then the camera zooms in and they've got rollerblades on, and the cops are like, I hate it when they run, and the other cop is like, they can run, but we can fly. And then there's this long chase scene set to like a Better Than Ezra song. I don't know. It's amazing.
Oh man, this sounds kind of attractive now.
Yeah, so you gotta check it out.
And there's a wiki page for guest stars. It says Pacific Blue also featured numerous appearances by professional wrestlers. It's like, yeah, that kind of tells you a lot about the
It's
show.
kind of one of those shows that like seems like it's gonna break into pornography at any minute, but it kind of doesn't. It's also it's so funny. Like I've seen a few episodes here and there just because it's funny. It's just so funny how like they just have to go so far out of their way to like have them not chase people on cars. And there is one sequence where like one of the new cops is like a car gets away and she's like, man, if we'd been in cars, we would have gotten that guy. And her lieutenant is like, don't you ever say that again. You just broke the Pac Blue code.
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Let's move on.
Oh, good
I
detour.
apologize.
All right. Written by Serling, directed by Douglas Hayes, and that does close out the Hayes ooze.
Wow, okay.
So
What do we got?
let's say best and worst. This is the list. The Invaders, Dust, Eye of the Beholder, The Howling Man, Nervous Man in a $4 Room, The After Hours, The Chaser, Elegy, and When the Sky Was Opened. So
Wow.
kind of a long list, but I don't think there's really a stinker.
No, he was like maybe one of the best Twilight Zone directors. Now hearing that list, I have to say probably Eye of the Beholder for me would be. It's like hard to separate like episode from directing. You know,
Sure.
'Cause The Chaser to me is the worst episode, but it's actually kind of enjoyably directed. There's that whole wacky library scene. You know, what were some of the other ones in there? What are some of the other?
Well, the Invaders
Yeah.
would be the other.
Yeah.
I think the Eye of the Beholder and the Invaders would be kind of the toss up for best because they both
of them have like cool
both have
directing challenges.
good touches.
You know,
Yeah,
like one of
yeah.
them is a silent episode, the other one's like
don't show the faces,
Yeah.
but don't draw too much attention to the fact that you're not showing the faces.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe Eye of the Beholder by a very narrow margin. What do you think?
By a pig snout.
Exactly. By a 2-inch astronaut.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree that it's pretty close. I'll just go ahead and, for degree of difficulty, maybe give it to the Invaders. But I say it's really close. As for worsts, I don't know. The Chaser, this one,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a toss up.
Yeah.
So
The Chaser's more despicable, but this one's a little more boring, so I don't know. Pick your poison.
Sure. All right, and that brings us to the
Inevitable.
MST3K.
Really quick before we get into it, Douglas Hayes Jr.'s last writing credit for Pacific Blue was an episode called Disrobed. Anyway, moving on. We like to find
To
connections.
be fair, I'm sure if you looked at like the list of episodes on Wiki, they would all be in that vein.
Well, Thrill Week, Stargazer, Soft Targets, Bad Company,
Right.
but Disrobed is maybe the pick of the litter.
Yeah.
Anyway, we like to find connections between Mystery Science Theater 3000 and the Twilight Zone. What do we got this week, John?
This week, Dan White portrayed Second Man. He was also well remembered, I'm sure, by many as Porky Reed in the 4th season episode, Attack of the Giant Leeches. I will say there were a lot of crowds in this episode, and there were several other people in the IMDb list, but I kind of ran out of steam, so there might have been another person or two. And there were some that we've covered before, Sokolov and Douglas Hayes, of course, with Kitten with a Whip, but there were plenty of MST connections in this episode. That's our new one for the week.
Cool.
Yep.
So what about IMDb rating?
IMDb gives this episode a 7.0.
Kind of middling.
So very middle lowish
Yeah.
almost. Pretty middle.
I feel like it's kind of a 5, It's like we've both already forgotten most of what happened.
Yes.
There's nothing I would say that's really bad in it. I just think it's kind of like a competent snooze fest. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, maybe like a 5- just for like
Agreed.
the sheer kind of listlessness of the episode. But it is eminently forgettable. I mean, I feel very much like the sheriff would have felt if you showed him this. Was it a 5? Are any of us a 5?
All right. Maybe our shortest rating conversation ever. 5 minuses all around.
The best part about the episode was Serling's intro, which was slam bang, and then it just kind of fizzled from there. So
cool.
Yeah.
A damp squib.
Cool.
Next week we're going to do another episode of the Twilight Zone, obviously. Stay tuned to our social media to find out what it is. And there's lots of ways to get in touch with us, as a matter of fact. John, what are they?
You could send us an email at twilightpwn, pwn@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at twilightpwn. You can check out our website, twilightpwn.tumblr.com. You could like us on Facebook. You could listen to us on any kind of podcatcher app. And if you're over in iTunes, you can subscribe to us there. If you leave us a rating or review while you do it, we really appreciate those. To that end, could I say thanks to Mum Daddy and John Hazard
Thank you
for leaving us a couple of reviews. We really get a kick out of reading those, so thanks so much.
Really appreciate it. Trying to think of a question that relates to the episode that isn't horribly
Fred,
twitchy.
are any of us free, Fred?
I don't know.
Any last minute Oscar picks? Did you see any of the movies while we were doing the podcast?
I'm trying to think of movies that I've actually seen this year. I saw that creepy Austrian horror movie, Goodnight Mommy. Did you see that one?
We have talked about seeing that, but we haven't watched it yet. Did you enjoy it?
A nervous watch for any parents, I imagine.
Yeah. We watched Room last night to kind of finish it off before, but, my wife she read the book while she was pregnant with our kid, and that was maybe not the best choice she made. And now we sat and watched this, and my wife's a little more emotional than I in general, but she was just like sobbing through about 75% of that movie. Like
opening credits,
it got to
just
the point where
tear.
there were tons of scenes where it's like, I get it, and then at some point it was like, come on, you just like gave her a bowl of cereal. Like, come on,
it's the second unit photographer, just capturing a parking scene. I will. Okay, here's one thing. My coworker is friends with an actor or something, so he gets SAG DVDs. So he gave me the SAG DVD for The Big Short a long time ago, and there was this very comical scene of me being like, yeah, and then taking it home, and then just walking around and I can't plug it in. I can't. My computer, no, don't have a DVD. No, oh wait, what about I just don't have a DVD player anymore. So. I was screwed.
Does that qualify as a humble brag, or are you so far beyond the tech?
I don't know. Is that a humble brag?
I don't need. Is that the new? I don't even own a TV. I don't even own a DVD player.
DVD player anymore. I don't know. Listeners, let us know. But I'll talk to you next week, John.
All right, later, Fred. Bye.